Leaving no one behind is one of the key principles of the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. A universal commitment to end poverty and to reduce inequalities, to make our planet a better, safer and cleaner place to live in, leaving no one behind. However, we do notice that nowadays 3 out of 4 people in the world cannot live decently from their earned income. Even more people are being left to fend for themselves when they are sick, unemployed or growing old. Women, young people and the elderly are the most vulnerable. And our planet is also suffering. Our way of life places a heavy burden on our environment, which puts sustainable development at risk. And let's face it, on a dead planet we will find no work, no social protection, no biodiversity. Decent work is necessary to achieve the SDGs. We need productive, quality jobs which people can freely choose, with an income sufficient to take care of their family. Workers need to be able to work in safe and healthy working conditions, while their workers' rights are respected. And yes, we need social protection for all people throughout their life cycles, guaranteeing their right to health, an income in the event of unemployment or illness, a pension for old age, basic care for the most vulnerable, such as children or people with disabilities. Everyone has the right to opportunities to organize, to empower themselves, to unite and to stand up for human rights. This is done through effective and structural dialogue with governments and economic actors, in particular by means of social dialogue. Creating decent jobs, guaranteeing workers' rights, social protection for all and social dialogue. That is what we need in order to defeat poverty and social exclusion. In Belgium, 9 organizations are committed to decent work worldwide. 4 NGOs, 3 trade union confederations and 2 mutual health funds. Together, we set up a coordination platform to exchange strategies, to take a joint action and to promote decent work in cooperation with our partner organizations in Africa, Asia and Latin America, and their respective networks in Belgium, Europe and internationally. Now, most of us work together in a common 5-year program, and we will continue to do this. Indeed, WSM, the Christian Mutualities, the International Institute for Workers' Education, IIWE, and the Movement for International Solidarity, MIS, are committed to developing a new program for the next 5 years between 2022 and 2026. In doing so, obviously, we will respect the specific nature and autonomy of each of the organizations, while at the same time seeking genuine cooperation. And with this particular video, we would like to explain how we, together with our many partners, want to achieve change for more decent work worldwide. And we developed this theory of change through years of experience and cooperation with almost 100 social movements across 24 countries, based on evaluations of programs and studies of international organizations such as the International Labour Organization, ILO, and the International Trade Union Confederation, ITUC. What change do we want and who do we want it for? We want decent jobs for young people, a decent pension for the elderly, gender equality and justice for gender-based discrimination and violence at work, affordable, good healthcare for everyone, the same labour rights as well as fair and living wages for every worker, freedom of association, safe and decent working conditions in all sectors, including in the global supply chains, social protection coverage, including for people working in the informal economy, an effective social dialogue in companies to defend and to improve labour rights. In short, we want all working people to enjoy their most fundamental right to decent work and social protection. Social dialogue must be respected and strengthened in this respect. Based on their specific mandate, mission and experience, WSM and the Christian Mutualities will focus mainly on the right to social protection, while IIWE and MIS will focus mainly on labour rights and social dialogue in the next programme. If we want vulnerable workers to be able to lead a decent life within the ecological limits of our planet, we will have to organise our societies differently, socially, politically, economically and culturally. In other words, we need systemic changes. We need to move away from the current system and work towards a system where the economy is put at the service of social progress within the limits of our planet, where labour and other human rights are fully respected and where democratic governance is fully implemented. Within this system, now 3 stakeholders play a key role: governments, economic actors and social movements, and they must learn to cooperate at local, national, regional and international level. Well, let's have a closer look at each one of them. Governments have to develop laws and regulations to guarantee fundamental human rights, and they must create a framework where these 3 main stakeholders come together for effective and structural dialogue. Together, these stakeholders have to make the choices about how they want to shape their societies. Economic actors produce goods and services, and therefore they create jobs. And we need companies that take the necessary measures so that human rights, labour rights and environmental standards are respected in their chains. And it's very important that this process of due diligence is carried out in cooperation with the trade unions, as well as with other stakeholders, such as non-organized workers or the inhabitants of surrounding communities, victims of work-related accidents and diseases, and so on. And thirdly, social movements. Trade unions, mutual health funds, microcredit institutions, women and youth movements, as well as organizations of elderly people, they are the engine of social change and play an important role in the transition to an inclusive and sustainable society. They represent and defend the needs and interests of their members or constituencies. Vulnerable people excluded from the current system, such as informal workers and domestic workers with no valid employment contract, workers with no or limited social protection coverage, women with no access to microfinance, young people with poor educational opportunities and very limited access to the labour market, people working in extremely difficult and dangerous conditions, for example, in the mining and textile industries, or elderly people with no access to pensions, people who fall ill but have no access to quality healthcare. The list is long. It is too long, far too long. Social movements must be recognized for their role in building societies. But to obtain that recognition and to play that role effectively, we need strong social movements. And what does that mean, strong social movement? First of all, they have the necessary legitimacy to speak on behalf of the people they represent. They therefore need a significant number of members who democratically appoint the leaders of their organization to represent them. Secondly, they must have different capacities. The capacity to organize, mobilize and empower their target groups, their members, by raising awareness and educating them about their rights and responsibilities. The capacity to provide services to their members, such as vocational training, guidance to find the right job, advice and support to set up cooperatives, organizing and counseling mutual health funds, ensuring access to social security schemes, defending and protecting labour rights through social dialogue and possibly legal aid, organising and awareness raising for members and staff of trade unions. Finally, the capacity to represent their constituencies and negotiate through social dialogue or other forms of structural dialogue with governments and economic actors. They need to be able to advocate and lobby with the necessary legitimacy and expertise. And yes, they must be able to do this in an ever-changing context and in interaction with other actors from civil society, government and the economy. A social movement that stands alone can't make a difference. Whether it is about strengthening social movements or weighing on policy work, connecting social movements worldwide. In other words, internationalizing social movements is a lever for realizing social change. Within countries and between countries, social movements unite in networks to join forces. Sometimes similar organizations gather, like trade unions do within the wider ITUC network. Mutual health funds do so in national platforms and within the International Association of Mutual Health Funds, AIM, and cooperatives also gather in REPES. And then sometimes different types of organizations come together, driven by a common goal, and knowing that bringing together different types of social movements, each with their specific expertise and position in dialogue with government and economic actors, they can have a greater impact. In other words, a multi-stakeholder approach that we find in the thematic network on the right to social protection. We know what change we want and who we need in order to achieve it. How can our cooperation program contribute to this? First of all, through the provision of services. WSM, the Christian Mutualities, IIWE and MIS support organizations in providing services to their members. For example, training courses, guidance for initiatives of the social economy, economic, social and or legal advice for workers, ensuring access to affordable and quality healthcare, but also strengthening the negotiation capacities for social dialogue and other types of structural dialogue. In addition to financial support, they focus on strengthening knowledge and expertise. Together with the partner organizations, they look for the most appropriate way to do this. This may involve training courses, exchanges between several organizations from different continents or from different countries, tailor-made support which is provided by an expert, facilitation of participation in international conferences, and so on. To that end, WSM, the Christian Mutualities and IIWE do mobilize the expertise of the wider Belgian Christian labour movement, where relevant. And MIS, of course, mobilizes the liberal trade union movement. Secondly, the organizational and institutional development of organizations. WSM, the Christian Mutualities, IIWE and MIS support organizations in their organizational and institutional development, with a view to strengthening their seat at the negotiation table with governments, companies and other civil society organizations. Sometimes in their own countries, sometimes regionally, but also internationally. In doing so, the 4 Belgian organizations build on their complementary, specific expertise. For instance, MIS and IIW are strongly committed, together with WSM, to train trade union leaders. The Christian Mutualities and WSM will invest in professionalizing mutual health funds and to reinforce their role in achieving universal health coverage. Thirdly, networking. With the strong involvement of the Christian Mutualities, IIWE and MIS, WSM and its partners have been building an international thematic network on the right to social protection since 2008. Today, our partner organizations are working together in 18 national networks, and they have joined forces subsequently in regional networks in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. And at the end of 2019, we took the decision to also join forces as a network at the international level. This international network on the right to social protection is a place where we share knowledge and strategies. It is a lever to influence the social protection policy agenda, both at national, continental, and international level. Based on this networking strategy, WSM, the Christian Mutualities, IIWE, and MIS, together with their partners, enter into strategic alliances with international organizations and networks that are important stakeholders for the changes we want to achieve. The ILO, the UN Social Protection Interagency Cooperation Board, UNSPACB, USP 2030, ITUC, the Global Coalition for Social Protection Floors, AIM, the Clean Clothes Campaign, etc. Fourth, advocacy. Our organizations focus on result-oriented advocacy by supporting and strengthening the advocacy of individual partners and the international thematic network. Advocacy is necessary also at the Belgian, European, and international levels. And the sustained commitment over the last few years of our organizations, WSM, the Christian Workers Movement, IIWE, and MIS, it has paid off, since decent work became an important priority theme for the Belgian Development Corporation. Together with others, we continue to work on this. We participate in various working groups, networks, and seek allies for our joint advocacy work. Together, we build knowledge and expertise. In this way, we also contribute to a binding legal framework for human rights due diligence, HRDD, in Belgium and Europe. Together with the ILO and the World Bank, we are seeking global support for universal social protection as part of USP 2030. Knowledge building. WSM, the Christian Mutualities, IIWE, and MIS consult with partner organizations on their key topics of decent work and social protection, as well as other specific topics related to them, such as financing social protection, health in all policies, human rights due diligence, demographic changes in social protection, gender, and the environment. By bringing partner organizations from different countries together around these themes, it is possible to focus more on knowledge building, research, and advocacy. After all, knowledge is essential for effective advocacy. Before we can influence anyone or anything, we need to know what we are talking about. And here too, we make use of the network in Belgium, the network within the Christian Labour Movement, Beweging.net and MOC. But also beyond. We will reach out to organizations that share our strategy and fight with us for decent work, or with those who can offer added value, such as the Coordination Platform for Decent Work, Masmut, Because Health, ITUC, and so on. Sixth, and finally, the internationalization of our work with the movement in Belgium. Belgium? That little country that is our home. Are we fighting the same battle here? Yes, we are. Decent work is under pressure in Belgium and throughout Europe. The shrinking space of civil society, austerity cuts in social security, jobs under threat, and a flexible labour market which is increasingly seen as a valid alternative. As social movements, we play a key role in tackling these challenges in Belgium, in Europe, and internationally. WSM is committed to connecting social movements worldwide to jointly defend the right to decent work and the right to social protection. In Belgium, WSM works with the partner organizations of Beweging.net and MOC, such as the organizations of elderly people, the youth movements, the women movement, the cooperative organizations, etc. Together, we want to develop a vision that confirms the need for international solidarity and cooperation. This vision must then of course translate into an active commitment of these organizations to international cooperation in both their policies and operations. Now, to get there, WSM learned it should focus on those in charge and a few key people in these organizations. When they are convinced, great things are possible. Let's look at the Organization of Elderly People, OCRA, that stands up for decent pensions and affordable care worldwide. CSCB, working on human rights due diligence in the supply chain to improve the fate of mining workers in Togo, and MOC Liège, supporting the work of our partners in Burkina Faso. And there are many more examples. These are the key features of the theory of change of our joint cooperation program. A theory that only acquires real meaning because it is applied on a daily basis at the grassroots level by social movements around the world. Because social movements provide human faces to a group of people. Our theory of change is not carved in stone, obviously. We need to continue to evaluate it and learn about the thematic choices we make, about the approaches that work and those that don't work, about the priorities we can tackle with the resources at our disposal. In July 2021, we will submit a new cooperation program to the Belgian Development Corporation. Now is the time to reflect and establish priorities together, each starting from our own realities. From November onwards, we will meet virtually per region to put this theory of change to practice and to validate the broad strategic choices and to fine-tune them even more. The preparation of each of the participants, your preparation, is very important. You are the experts, you know the voice of the working people for whom you want change. Use the questions we ask you to make your voice and their voice, the voice of the people you represent, heard. Let our program not just be a theory, but let's make it real. Together, we can make a difference for the people you represent. From a theory of change to the actors of change, and vice versa.